If you tell your boss you can't do something and then you find yourself doing it the next day, or a friend asks you to go out and you're so tired, you tell them you don't have energy, but just a little push from them, you're getting ready 10 minutes later. You're not alone. It's really normal when we want to say no, but there's part of us that still feels like we have to do it anyway. So I want to give you some tools and strategies to understand why it might be really hard to actually stick to boundaries that you say and what you can do about it. We often talk about them as a communication skill, like you just have to say no and that's it. But it's actually a lot of emotional labor, especially if you are a sensitive person where you're picking up other people's stuff and you notice how they respond to your no. So sometimes, honestly, it can just feel easier to do the thing, even if you don't really want to. There's all of these reasons why it's hard to stick to our boundaries. Part of it can be often, maybe it's not even your boundary. So sometimes there might be something you're saying no to that might not actually be aligned with what you want, or you want to do it. And so it makes sense that that's going to be really hard to maintain and kind of bolster against people's pushback to that boundary. I want to get really kind of clear about sometimes the reason it's hard to maintain your boundaries is that some people do not respect them. So I don't even think this is necessarily a personal failure a lot of the times. It's just there are certain people who don't know how to respect other people's boundaries and will push and push and push no matter what you do. And if one of those people happen to be a caregiver, a partner, close people in your life, that can make it hard to set boundaries in other relationships when that's the understanding you have about what relationships are supposed to be like. And if that's the blueprint, then your nervous system is registering that if you set a boundary, you lose connection. So there's a normal anxiety or fear response in those moments that can make it hard to really maintain them because there's a fear of losing connection if you decide to really uphold that when someone's pushing on the boundary you set. And sometimes this can be just a habit, a pattern you've learned, that you've just learned to disregard your own needs, your own capacity, your own experience, and you've just been doing it for so long, you're not even sure how to do something differently. And I think with that, there's often this questioning of yourself. It might be hard to trust yourself, what you need, what you want, especially if you feel things really deeply. It can get really murky and confusing of what your needs are, what someone else is feeling, what you're feeling. So sometimes I think it's just really confusing to even identify where your boundaries and limits are. So if you say one thing and someone pushes on it, you might question yourself or dismiss your experience, especially if you've had people who were really good at dismissing you and your experience. There are many things and strategies you can try to help to create a new pattern of respecting your own needs, respecting your time, respecting your own energy, and maintaining connection with other people. So the first thing you want to think about is one basic foundation: what's yours and what's theirs. If you are trying to set a boundary and there's anxiety or there's emotions or energy in the mix, it can be really helpful to get clear of what's theirs, what's their emotional or energetic response to what you're saying, the boundary you're setting, and what might be your anxiety, your fear, things that are coming up within your system. Because these require very different responses. If it is something coming up within you, then that's something for you to process and understand and work with. If it is their response, it is not your job to fix or soothe or make them comfortable. But when it's really confusing of whose is what, it can feel like it's easier to just make them comfortable because it also impacts your system. And then once you get clear about what's yours and what's theirs, it can be helpful to figure out if what you're responding to is what's happening in the moment, or if what you're responding to is things that have happened in the past. Because as humans, we generalize. This is adaptive, it's protective. So if something has happened in the past, if setting a boundary, saying no, expressing yourself led to punishment, led to withdrawal, led to isolation, it makes sense that there is a fear response, and it's going to kind of blanket that over everything because you don't want to have those experiences again. You want to stay in connection with people. And sometimes it's a little overgeneralized. And part of the work is being able to figure out if what you're responding to is actually what's happening in that relationship, or if it's you're just assuming the person is going to respond how everyone else has responded, or how your parents responded, or your ex responded. And so I think it's giving yourself a little space to get curious about that, because if we don't ever give people the chance to honor and respect the boundary, then it's really hard to shift that pattern. And if someone is pushing back, that's really important information that maybe they are not an emotionally safe person, and that you might have to work a little harder in the strategies you're using to uphold and maintain your boundaries with that person. That might require a little more work than if it is something from the past. And then the work is to, how do I just calm and soothe myself, ground myself in this situation? But if it's the other person and they are not respecting your boundaries, if there's something happening where it's not actually super emotionally safe, then that requires a little different strategy. And I think it's really important to get clear on your why of whatever boundary you're trying to set. Why is this important to you? I think it's really hard to protect your time and energy, and it takes a lot of work. It is emotional labor. So in order to invest that time and energy into something, I think it's really important for you to get clear about why that's important to you. Anything that's hard or that takes risks, if we're not really clear on why we're doing it, it's easy to just kind of give up and to give in. And I think it's also really important to get an outside perspective. So if people are really good at pushing boundaries, they're usually really good at getting you to question yourself and your experience. So have a trusted person that will be real with you and not just tell you what you want to hear, but someone who will be honest with you around what's happening, so you can come back to kind of that place where you really know your limits, especially when someone is trying to step over them. And then thinking about boundaries as a spectrum of enforcement, like reinforcement almost, where sometimes you might just have to say the boundary or just shift your behavior, and that's enough. And in certain situations, you are really going to have to work hard to shift your behavior and your patterns of response with someone else. So I think this can be on a subtle level where you just stop giving someone that emotional reaction or response. If you know someone is like trying to dig at you or says something to get a response, one of the simplest boundaries you can put in place energetically is to just stop allowing them to dictate your emotions, your energy. And this isn't ignore your feelings, but it's just stop giving them so much power over how you feel about yourself. If they can't respect the boundary, that you have to remove yourself. Don't give people access to you. Don't give people access to your deeper parts of yourself. It's not that you just cut them out, but you stop sharing certain things with them. There's all these subtle ways that you can kind of pull your energy back from people, pull parts of yourself back from people who aren't actually safe to share those parts of you with. And that does take a little more work. So again, there's thinking about just part of maintaining it is getting clear about why you're doing it, shifting your focus to yourself, what you need in order to stay grounded. And then what are you going to do? How are you going to align your behavior with whatever your boundary is, whatever you're saying? And then do what you need to release or protect yourself from someone else's energy. I'm going to teach you a little practice that I find really helpful in terms of maintaining boundaries. Okay, well, we're thinking about how to bolster yourself for boundaries, for holding your boundaries. I think one thing I love to teach people is kind of this embodied sense of dignity. That you exist, I exist, we can both exist. I don't have to get small, you don't have to get small in order for us to coexist. So I want to just start by playing with our posture a little. So I'm going to turn to the side so you get a clear view of what I'm saying. So often when we are kind of just going with whatever's happening, we can get small. Our body kind of goes over, we're protecting ourselves. And this might even look like we're a little here, but also kind of outward focused. We're trying to see what everyone else is doing. And then the opposite way of that is a puffing up of the chest, shoulders back, this kind of power over, prideful stance. I used to work with teenagers. I feel like this is like the teenage boy stance. And then just you can come back to center, you can shake it off. Just kind of knowing our spine, our body is kind of taking shapes all the time in relation to other people. So when we're thinking about dignity, this is a place where we're not jutting out our chest, we're not caving in. We have this really balanced posture. So to find this, you could do this seated, you can do it standing, but first just think about kind of this grounded energy through your feet, through your hips, through your pelvis. And then from there, instead of trying to just jam your shoulders back, think about your tailbone kind of lengthening down. So oftentimes we try to shift our body, but our pelvis is in a weird position, and that makes it really hard to get an upright spine. So just naturally letting your tailbone just kind of rest down. You're not pulling it under, you're not jutting it back, but it's just resting down towards the ground. And then from there, think about lengthening through the spine, stacking your shoulders over your hips. I'm going to turn this way now, widening across the collarbones. And then think about the ribs kind of hugging in a little bit. Bringing your chin back a little. So instead of jutting it forward, see if you can bring it back, lengthening the back of your neck. And then let yourself take up space. Let your body expand. Even taking a few breaths to see if you can get wider in this horizontal plane of your body. And see if you can sense in to your dignity, that you are worthy of being here. You exist without having to do anything for anyone else. You don't have to prove you're worthy. You are worthy of dignity and care for just existing. You don't have to assert power over others. You don't have to get small when other people are trying to bulldoze you. You get to just be here. It's that simple. And just feel that in your body. And we went through this in a little more detailed way, but thinking about how you can use this in any moment is just coming back to that place of dignity in your body, even if part of you doesn't feel that in the moment. When you're trying to really bolster yourself to say no and you notice yourself collapsing or even kind of puffing up and getting aggressive, wanting to fight, protect your boundaries, coming back here to this centered place. Because it's from here that you can make a skillful choice of what to do next. This is the end of a 5-part series I did around embodying boundaries for highly sensitive people. So I would love to hear in the comments if you just watched this video or if you watched the whole series, what has been helpful, what are the things you want to practice, and if some of this resonated, I have a free Find Your Hidden Energy Drains audit that goes along a lot of with what we're talking about. Helps you to figure out where your energy is going, the hidden ways that your energy is just getting sucked out of your system. So that's down in the description box. And thank you for coming into my channel, where the place where you can slow down and tune in.